Okay, let's get started. And now an official warm welcome to today's Impact for Breakfast session. For those who don't know me, my name is Deborah Keller, and I lead the Impact for Breakfast network, which is a global network of investors and consultants, advisors, and observers, students, so a huge mix. This specialized group has been gathering and growing since 2008, starting off in London with an expansion today to 23 cities and chapters around the globe. Our informal network counts 2,800 members today who are meeting virtually, like today, and at in-person gatherings in the local chapters. Impact for Breakfast is an informal group of family offices, foundations, funds, venture philanthropy, and intermediary organizations with a common focus on social enterprise, entrepreneurship, and impact investing. Those who are new and here for the first time, I'm happy to share our website and you can read a bit more about us and join our group if you wish. We are gathering today to learn about the Purpose Pool, which is an innovative funding mechanism that harnesses the power of the community to mobilize investment capital for the most impactful entrepreneurs in underserved markets. New Paradigm Ventures, in collaboration with the Social Innovation Academy Global, set up the Purpose Pool in Uganda in 2020 to prototype, measure, and iterate a new model. So far, they have invested $45,000 into 3 high-impact social enterprises. Their vision is to codify the model and build a community of Purpose Pool implementers around the globe to close the financing gap for social enterprises. And for that, I have 3 wonderful speakers with me today that will guide you through the presentation. Please welcome with me Amy Rebecca, founder and CEO of Patapia. Also with me, Michael Stripper, a partner at SINA Global, and Nikolaus Hutter, founder of New Paradigm Ventures. Before we dive into today's topic, I have a few housekeeping notes before we get started. I want to inform you that this session is being recorded. I will share the link with you, and you're welcome to pass it along with your network or colleagues that would be interested in the insight shared today. After the presentation, we will move over to the Q&A round and discussion round. I want to remind you that Impact for Breakfast is an informal network, so please feel free to unmute yourself, share your thoughts, questions, comments, ideas, anything that's on your mind. We'd love to hear it. And if you have a question during the presentation, you're welcome to also type it into the chat field, and we'll make sure to pick it up during the Q&A slot. And now, with no further ado, over to you, Niklas.
Hello and good morning from Vienna. I hope you can see the slides. I will be presenting. So welcome everybody. I see there's a sizable Austrian contingent here, which is great. A couple of familiar faces and names. Thank you for joining today. We'll be talking about the Purpose Pool, a prototype that we launched with Social Innovation Academy 2.5 years ago now, which we've been going pregnant with for a while. As those of you who know me, I have a background in venture capital, and for the last 10 years or so, I've been focused on impact finance and capacity building for social entrepreneurs. And one thing that we've noticed is that the financial system is not working in the way that it should, meaning allocating resources there where they're most productively used. And on the one hand, that has something to do with the definition of what productive means, either solving meaningful problems or generating profit. And for us in the impact field, of course, it is about solving meaningful problems while making a profit, which is the first derivative, but not an end in itself. So what we did together was say, how would a financing mechanism look if we started from first principles, first moral principles and first engineering principles? And this is what the Purpose Pool is, or what we're trying to build here. So thank you for joining, and we're really looking forward to your feedback. on any of those aspects. So when I say finance is broken, I mean that both in the functional sense and in the moral sense. So functionally, that the resources, the financial resources, capital is not flowing where the real need and the real value is. For instance, the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal financing gap. We're talking about 3 to 4 trillion a year, which is less than 0.5% of global financial assets and less than 5% of the real economy, and it's still not funded. On the other hand, there's plenty of money for frivolities. I have a personal beef with the crypto bubble. That's up for debate, but not for today. And when I talk about morally broken, I mean that many of the default mechanisms, especially the power balances and the power structures that we have in the finance system, not by design, but by evolution and how it has emerged, really lead to extractive and exploitative outcomes. And as we push towards the carrying capacity of the planet on the one hand and the limits of social cohesion on the other, something that really has exacerbated in the last decade or 5 years, we're increasingly seeing that. And in a way, if you want to frame it in a financial language, our current mindset in evaluating investment opportunities really leads to mispriced risk. And we've seen that in Lehman, in the Ukraine war, in climate, but also in significantly undervalued opportunities in the purpose field. And for us, the old adage is that the angel is in the detail, and we see that more and more and more, that when you dig deep into it and you let go of these misconceptions about risk, you see that businesses like Amy's, for instance, are actually very, very solid businesses. It's just that through our lenses that vulnerable populations and in fragile settings, etc., that the perception of risk here is exacerbated and doesn't let us see the real opportunity and the value, both on the impact and the commercial side. Now that's the systemic side, and particularly on the demand side, there are issues. One is that capacity. So despite solid fundamentals from a business perspective, which you will see when Amy presents her business, purpose-driven entrepreneurs often struggle to articulate their case in a way that fits the analytical mechanisms of the capital supply side. And that also means that access to both product and factor markets, in particular about capital, but also about models, ideas, business models, technology, capacity building and support services for entrepreneurs, etc., is particularly hard in what we call the periphery of markets, those people, places, and topics that our markets neglect. And on the pipeline side, this is something for those of you who are actually investing, there's a massive pipeline issue. So many investors, most of which are actually based in centers and not just financial centers like London, New York, Frankfurt, etc. But Kampala is also a center in Uganda, where Nakivale or Bidibidi is at the periphery, literally, of the country. But that also means there's a kind of social and regional matchmaking and networking part. And then also we have very much top-down structures that really leads to a flight to size and quality. If you look at the history and the big cases that pop up in the impact investment space, there's a couple of very familiar names that we're all quite familiar with. And that's, in a way, testament to the fact that the market is not very sophisticated, despite having been around for a decade or more, right? And then also the structural models that we use as an analogy from the mainstream finance world, in particular angel and venture capital models, those have developed to serve investor needs and not the needs of the entrepreneurs and the purpose that they serve. So what we try to do is to come up with an alternative, a human-centered, purpose-focused, collaborative, inclusive, and regenerative finance model. And that's what we're going to present today. So, but before we do that, I'll hand over to Amy, who will tell us her story as one of the investees and why we're so excited, not just from a idealistic point of view, but also from a commercial point of view, because what we see time and time again is that these purpose-driven businesses are better businesses and better investment cases, not just from a financial and commercial point of view, but also from a moral and ethical point of view. So Amy, over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Amy Rebecca, and I'm a founder of Patapia. I came to Uganda in 2012 as a refugee from DRC Congo. And when we reached Uganda, life was hard for us. It was hard for us to start life. We couldn't find something to eat. I had to go to different markets to pick food down, which we could eat. And we had to sleep outside or in unfinished buildings. And it was really horrible for us. My mom tried to look for a job, but it was very hard for her to find a job. The only way was for her to start a business. But since we were refugees, she didn't have access to capital or money she could use to start a business. Later on, she got a job as a household. Unfortunately, since she was not used to this kind of life, she only worked for 3 months and she developed a back problem. She couldn't work anymore. I was only 14. I had to see how to take care of my mom and even my siblings. Still, it was hard. It was the same way with me. It was hard for me to find a job. And since I was younger, then it was really very tough. I continued talking to different people. You know, when you're talking to people and when you are young, it's hard for people to maybe trust you, and I couldn't find a job. But one day I talked to the one woman who knew us from where we are staying, and she was open to help. Then she was like, okay, maybe you can work for me. You can become a hawker. Since I didn't have another option, I just started doing that business so that I could manage to treat my mom. While doing this business, I was working in Kampala town. It was really very risky because at the age of 14, you are moving alone. And but I had to still do it because I wanted to take something back home. And by that time, we had got a house where in a slum where we are staying, we had to pay that small room. Although we are paying there $12, but it was really hard to get that money every month. I had to work very hard to get it. But unfortunately, my boss was like, no, Eme, you cannot work in Kampala anymore. There is no way of working in Kampala. In Kampala, there is no money. You need to start moving to different villages so that we can see if we can make more money. I didn't have another option, but I had to accept because my boss took me to the bus and paid for me transport. Then I went. When I reached there, it was really very challenging. I remember the first time I went, I reached there in the evening. It was around 8 p.m. And by that time, I had not made any sales. I had to sleep with my product on the head, on the street, because I didn't have where to go. I had not made any money, maybe to get a lodge or a room where to sleep. The next day I started selling, I started moving. That's where my struggle, okay, from before I was struggling, but this super struggle started from. You are just 15 years by that time, you are really far from home. I used to even not to know where I was, but I need to move and I need to find a way back home. I could spend there a week. And in this process, I remember the first day I was in one village here. I was moving around with my products on the head. I met a man. I was asking them if they could buy something from me. They were like, yes, but you come inside my house. I cannot come outside because the sun is a lot. The day then I went there, I thought I was going to make sales. The man raped me for the first time. And with this, it was really heartbreaking, but I didn't have anything to do. And since I was young, I just got the things back. I came back home. I didn't talk with anyone, anything. I just said, I'm not doing this business anymore. I'm not doing this. I went to my boss. I gave them back the product. I went back home. I stayed home for like, it was around around 12 days, 11, and we already didn't have what to eat. I thought again, life of going picking food in the market, which I did within those days. But there was this situation where my mom needed medication, needed to be treated. I couldn't go and start picking medicine. I needed money to treat my mom. Otherwise, she would cry the whole night because of pain. And here, when you go to the hospital, you need to buy medicine for yourself. I had to decide to go back to do the same business. I went back to my boss. I started going back again to the villages. When I went there, my goal was for me to start my own business. I started saying, maybe I save some small thing, I start my own business, but it was still hard because every time I could go, I come back, a lot of expenses. The money cannot be enough for home, then I cannot save or I cannot start my business. And in this time, I needed $30 only to start my business, which will be safe for me. Then when another time when I went back, one day I found with a group of gangs. There were 4 men, and yeah, they were moving. They all raped me, and yeah, when they were raping me, they were saying they wanted to kill me. Lucky enough, I got some people who were passing, going to fetch water because it was in a deep village. They saved me. And with this, because they were really, I don't know how to say this part, but I don't know how many raped me, but I'm sure maybe more than two did before those people saved me. And from this time, my life changed. I was like, okay, why do I deserve this? Do I have to commit suicide? I didn't know what to do to myself. But because of my family, I was the only person my family was depending on. I couldn't do anything to hurt my family or my family to lose me. With all this experience, I had to be strong just for my family. Although I just wanted to start my own thing, but since I had not gone to school, and I had a dream to become a lawyer, but I kept talking about it, but the dream had died. That I killed that dream long time, but I could admire lawyers and I could talk to people. I was like, for me, I wanted to become a lawyer, although it didn't work. One day, someone was talking about where they are giving out scholarships. And when he was talking, my mom was there. My mom was like, hey, why can't you take there my daughter? My daughter wants to be a lawyer. Then I was like, Mom, how will I go to study when I have to work? My mom was, just go and see what is there. That when I went to SINA, Social Innovation Academy, when I reached there, I went through some scholar selection, and I went like I was escorting other people, but when I reached there, lucky enough, I was I think I was the only person who was chosen to be part of the program. And for me, I thought I had gone to school. When I reached there, and I had challenges whereby I could not speak English. I could not talk in people. I was always sad, always someone of problems. And since I had to keep going home to provide for my family, I had many things in my head. But when we were there, I got a coach who helped me, who supported me to come through the problems I was going through, and they were like, you know what, we know people have come from different backgrounds, you have different challenges, and you just look at where you're coming from, your community, where you're coming from. And I remember where I was staying, where we had many refugees around us, many communities we had come with from DRC Congo running. And I thought of, what can I really do for these people? What can I do to my community to make them a better person? That's how I thought of starting Patapia, so that I can be able to support refugees. Because here, refugees, they find it hard to support their families or to provide for their families because they don't have business skills and they don't have access to financial services. Imagine in Uganda, we have 1.5 million refugees, and 86% are women and children. 64 households are women-led, because men are either they died in the war in Congo or in their countries, or they were kidnapped. And these women struggle night and day to see how they can provide for their families. That's why we thought of starting Patapia. Patapia is a social enterprise which supports refugee women to become self-sustainable by providing with them business training, low interest loan with no collateral, so that they can be able to improve and provide for their families. Another slide. On average, each woman needs 300 USD, which is paid back in the period of 12 months, with interest of 3% per month, which helps us to reinvest or to give to other refugees, so that they can be able to improve their lives, and also for Patapia to grow their impact. And for each woman we give money to, they are asked to save minimum of $5 per month, because we realize that these women don't have this mindset of saving for themselves. Then when they find some challenges like health challenges, they need to pay rent, they need to grow their business, they don't have any way of doing it because they don't save, or they don't have any way of supporting themselves. And with this money they save plus the repayments, the money they repay back, it helps us to reinvest in more women. Then we give them back the money with a small interest at the end of the year. Yes. Yeah, and to reach our break even, we have to invest at least in 150 women for the hub to be self-sustainable. And we started in 2020, and we were able to finance 46 women. 2021, we financed 100 women, and in 2022, we have been able so far to finance to 350 women, and we have made a profit of 31,000. And next year, we are opening up another hub. We want to open up another hub in Ramwanja refugee camp, and we project to finance by next year, to finance 1,000 refugee women. Yes, Mother. We from the women we have been able to support or to help. We have impacted 5,000 refugees. From the women, we support from people who depend on them, because each woman has more than 3 people who depends on them. And when we support them, we help their families, their kids to go to school, for them to afford to get medical cares and other things they need. And Patapia has been able to employ around 25 refugees who helps us in Patapia, and even other women whom we work with who helps other women as mentors to grow their own businesses. And this is Kaitesi. She came in Uganda in 2014 as a refugee from Rwanda, and she didn't have any way of providing for her children. They were not going to school. They were sick of malnutrition. And when she came to Patapia with our support, our mentors, she was able to come up with a business idea. She was supported, and when she got the finances, she started her own business. Now she's able, her children go back to school, and recently she was telling us that even when the child is sick, at least she can afford some medication for them, and they have a good health. Since she sells food, like that means the kids have what to eat and they have a good health. And she's now, we are surprised recently, we checked, she has saved around $580, and with this, we have been able to change her life. In Uganda only, we have 14 refugee camps, and we hope to reach all these refugee camps, because we have realized that most of refugees in different areas need our services, although we cannot reach them at once. For each hub, we need 75,000 to start each hub, and with this we can be able to finance the women and get the office set up. Then the hub can be self-sustainable, and it can be able to grow by itself. If we get 75,000 and start a hub in one of the refugee camps, that means that hub, by that time, it can start being self-sustainable. Yeah, we, as I said, we started in 2020, and from that time, we have had some challenges. Like now, for me, as being a refugee itself has made me get some gaps, whereby sometimes I get opportunities to go to different places, maybe to meet investors, to meet people who can support. But being a refugee, I cannot get some documents to travel, and it becomes hard for me to reach the investors or to reach people who can really support us to grow and to reach our goal. For example, in April, I was supposed to go to Germany, but I couldn't make it. I have another program where I'm supposed to, I had last week, I had to travel to Nairobi to meet some investors. Still, I didn't get travel documents. Next year, I have an opportunity where I'm supposed to go to USA, but still, it's hard to get, having this state some of our goals we want. And some people maybe don't trust us, like maybe in our businesses to meet, we don't have opportunities where we meet these people who can invest or believe in our businesses and invest in us so that we can grow and so that we can reach the impact we need. Because now when we look for us, we need to open up different hubs in different refugee camps, but without the financing, without the support from different organizations, with different individuals, we cannot reach that kind of goals. That's why maybe I would request if there would be any way of supporting us. Like now, the way Papa School, I first thank Papa School for believing or trusting in us. They are the first investors we got, and with their support, we got 10,000 from Papa School, and with this, it was able to help us, to support us, push us even where we have reached now. And if we get more like of this organization, more of these individuals, I know we can do more than what we have done. Yeah, thank you so much. If there is a question, maybe we can put it in the chat. I'll be able to decide.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much for presenting, Amy. That has been great. So my name is Maike, and I work with the Social Innovation Academy. And I know Nikolaus and Amy because we've worked together around the Purpose Pool for the last 2 years. So basically what Amy pointed out, talent is equally distributed. It's all over the world, equally distributed, but opportunities are just not. Especially as a refugee, you don't have travel documents, you don't have even documentations to potentially open up your business, you're not trusted. So, but talent is there all over Africa and all other continents. So even in SINA, currently we have 8 SINA communities already. 1,000 people have gone through our program. 59 social enterprises are born, and we created 348 jobs. However, people find it so challenging to actually scale their business, which is actually a valid business case, because they don't have access to those kind of opportunities. So right now, the statistics are like 22% of Africa's working population actually wants to start their own business because there are no job opportunities. We have very little jobs available. So it's better to start your own business. Then 98 of those early stage founders lack access to financial services or to finances to actually start their business. Because yeah, you can start and bootstrap and don't without money, but at a certain point you will need to invest in order to grow your business, and it's just not available. Additionally, 90% of the funding that actually goes to the African continent goes to foreign founders. So it's actually not supporting the local community, but rather people who come from abroad and build their businesses. So that's a challenge we have been seeing with the Purpose Pool, and that's something we want to change. So what do we do with the Purpose Pool? Exactly. So what we aim to do is we want to close the investment gap for impact entrepreneurs in those underserved communities, such as, for example, the refugee community. So what do? We provide a ticket size of 5 to 50,000 USD to really cover early stage funding in cases like Amy. Yeah, so we give them the money, and also through that they gain credibility and invest a little bit into their business, and then they can access additional opportunities. Our target group, as mentioned, are social entrepreneurs in underserved markets. So right now we are mostly doing Uganda. Currently, I'm actually in Kinshasa and DRC to kind of see the environment here. So we're really aiming to grow within countries and communities where there's really little access to finance and to grow their business. So what makes us unique is we have a peer-to-peer selection. A lot of times we see that people from the US or Europe travel to Africa and decide who gets the money, who's a valid business case. But they forget that actually the local community knows best which business model can really work. So that's why we have established the method of peer-to-peer selection, where founders like Amy actually decide the next round of investment. Because if you're a founder yourself, you know way better which other business case is valid. The fourth component is that we do a revenue-based payback. Yeah, so it's not like a loan where you have a fixed payback, nor we take equity. We take 5% of the quarterly revenue. So if the business is growing, we benefit, and the entrepreneur also benefits, and the risk for them to default is pretty low. So how does the investment model work? So here we can see we have the Purpose Pool. So investors put in their money, and then ventures receive between 5 to 50,000. They actually have to pay back a 2.5 multiple of what they received and pledge their shares. Through the revenue share, they buy back their shares. And if they have paid back the 2.5 multiple, they're basically out of the deal, and they can decide if they want to apply for additional funding. Our investors, on the other hand, receive 1.5 multiple of what they received out of it, but the period of payback is not fixed. Next. Exactly. So revenue share seems to be like a new instrument, especially I've seen it a lot now in the African market. So what's the advantage? On the one hand, we have equity. So there's flexible payback, and the patient's return is quite high, but then there's no exit route. We take shares. On the other hand, there's debt, where people are really struggling because there's fixed repayment. And in case of COVID or Ukraine war, where prices just inflate so much, it's very hard for the entrepreneur. So that's why we decided on the revenue shared payback, because if the entrepreneurs grows quickly, the purpose pool and the entrepreneur also benefits at the same time. So we really, through that revenue-based payback, we really want to create this kind of community feel where it's like it's a win-win. If you grow, we grow, and you're also kind of out of the deal after you paid back your entire amount. So it leaves our entrepreneurs with a lot of flexibility. Next. So far, so good. So we had the pleasure to already work with 3 entrepreneurs. We've invested 45,000 USD. So one of them you just saw, very inspiring, Amy, with her business Patapia, providing microloans to refugee women. Another one is a refugee-led business called Generous Designs Africa. There we did it a bit different. We invested into machinery. So they received a machine that can recycle hard plastic. And now they're building up a recycling center in the refugee camp and can kind of 3D print products through plastic waste, such as buckets, jerry cans, and so on, which they can then sell to UNHCR, because those are equipments that they provide to refugees anyway. And our third case is Eugenics. It's also a former SINA alumni who suffered from malaria a lot in the past, and now basically developed a mosquito repellent soap, which she sells for a high price to lodges, hotels, and also abroad, and subsidized price to the local community. Yeah, so we are still on the journey. As we said, we started in 2020, so we had a lot of hypotheses to validate. So for example, are enterprises actually interested in the 2.5 multiple model? Would they actually go for the deal? And then also, is the 5% revenue share working? You know, because it might be a bit hard sometimes to get credible bank statements and so on. And but we are glad that so far we had already verified them. So we have a lot of interest for the purpose pool from more than 40 applications so far. And also the revenue share, we were ready to able to receive 5,000 USD in payback, which is obviously not the entire amount, but it's a good start. And yeah, so now we want to see if we can actually make it a sustainable business case also for investors, because so far we have prototyped with grants. So people gave us grants to prototype the model, but now I feel like we have validated the model far enough. So we are actually ready to also receive investors who would invest into the pool, and then they receive our payback. And then our future idea is basically that we can scale the model. So we want to have a similar model as Amy said, like we can build different purpose pools around the globe. It doesn't really matter around our methodology, because now we prototyped a lot. We had a lot of hypotheses and some of them validated. So we figured out a way on how this small scale impact fund can work and is also financially sustainable. So our vision is really to have a global network of those purpose pool implementers around the world, specifically serving underserved communities. Yeah, and I think that's maybe the message. If you do what you always did, you will get what you always got. So it's good to try something new. And yeah, you're welcome to join us on that journey. And yeah, I think we prepared a few questions, which we are actually interested to gain your feedback, because you are actually the ones who also have knowledge in the field of impact investment. So for example, like, how do you feel about the investor value proposition and also the revenue share model and so on? So yeah, now I would like to open the floor to any kind of questions to any of the three of us. And yeah, we're just glad to connect and communicate. And yeah, thank you for listening to us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I will stop sharing here and post the questions in this chat so that we can see each other when we have the discussion. So back to you, Deborah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Amy, for sharing your inspiring story. I see there are a few questions already in the chat field and a comment. Karina, I see you have a comment. You're welcome to share it. Unmute yourself. Yeah, Karen, I see you have a question too about whether you can take this model to Turkey and about the legal and tax framework. So please unmute yourself. You're welcome to share your question with our speakers.
Okay. First, thank you for the opportunity. And I did not expect this, but you've done exactly what we're hoping to do in Turkey. So, you know, I'm very happy to see that it's real and it's happening. And then you've got amazing stories like Amy's. One of the challenges that we're facing in Turkey, and I'm trying to look at this in other countries as well, is when you structure revenue-based financing, you said, for example, you take the shares as collateral, then there is a repayment, which basically buys back the shares. How is it debt? Is it, are you buying the shares? Is it, is the repayment a loan payment with interest, or is it a dividend distribution? Those are some of the challenges that we're facing. But I really believe that this model that you have is not only good for entrepreneurs, but it also provides an opportunity for reluctant investors who are not seeing clear exit paths to come and invest in these companies, especially early stage investments. VCs are not always the right place. And I think with these kinds of structured exits, you provide an opportunity for a lot more matchmaking between entrepreneurs and investors. So congratulations.
But maybe I can try and answer that question. When we were dreaming up this model, and this goes back like almost 10 years, the working prototype name was the 3F Trust Fund: founders, funders, and fixers or facilitators. So, you know, capacity builders like Micah, founders like Amy, and the funders who actually do this. And trust fund, not because of a trust fund, you know, that pays you, but because it's all based on trust. So a very honest answer is we haven't really implemented this share pledge in a legal way. Yeah. So the way we're probably going to look at it is to write a contract and say, you know, if anything goes wrong, rather than really then these shares are pledged, and there is a way of transferring them, like a call option or something, because you don't want to transfer shares with notary public and all of that. Yeah. So if there is a way to overcome that and use a different kind of not even enforcement, but preemptive alignment mechanism, which is trust and social capital. Yeah. And this is what we're trying to build. How do you harness the most valuable thing, like trust and social capital and intimate and a tacit knowledge in a community as a replicable, systematic way of allocating capital? And we think this is not just more effective, leads to better investment decisions, but also a lot more efficient, because we're like in this collective of founders, funders, and facilitators. We're taking a collective investment decision together, which also means that it's kind of crowdsourced, the crowd's wisdom, and everybody contributes fractional time. So there's not necessarily compensation for it, but everybody literally is a stakeholder in the purpose pool, and that makes everybody contribute and leads, hopefully, we can prove to a better outcome.
I love the preemptive alignment idea.
Yeah. Now, so some of you or many of you will know Pledge. It's a Seattle-based incubator and replication incubator. So we've just taken pieces that have been around for quite a while. So the peer-to-peer selection model, this is something that Village Capital has very widely proven and done. It's also been picked up in the tech investment space with Spear Fund. There is the Danish Founders Fund and so on. Yeah. And the revenue share model, this is what Pledge does, both directly in their portfolio. I think the domain is pledge.co, as well as in their franchise model. And they actually buy the shares and sell them back. Yeah. So we've decided not to do it that way because transferring shares is very costly, and at the amounts, the 5 to 50,000, probably the transaction cost will exceed the investment. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicolas. Hello, I please see you. You raise your hand. Do you have a question in chat, please? So please go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to thank Amy, Rebecca, for sharing this moving story with us. I really want to say thank you for that. And big respect for all that she achieved so far.
Thank you very much for your comment. And we have more questions here from Evie, who's asking about how you select the investment opportunities. Evie, if you have anything else you want to share, please unmute yourself.
Done? I can't hear you well. Could you repeat?
Yeah.
I think the question was how we select investment opportunities, right? So what we do right now is we only work with people from the SINA network. So because we have 8 communities, a lot of entrepreneurs coming out of there. So what we do is we source like which are the most promising social enterprises we have in the network. So people like Amy, Eugenics, Generous Designs Africa. And then, yeah, basically they have to submit their documents. We work with a financial forecasting template and business plan template. And then we kind of prepare them for our investment committee. And the interesting part is that our investment committee consists of 3. So some are founders like Amy who decide. Then we have the funders, so 2 investors or people who put in money, and then we call them the fixers. So people like Nikolaus or me or something who facilitate the process. And jointly, they basically take the decisions on the next investment. So we have like a 360-degree angle on the business from different perspectives. And so far, it has actually worked really, really well, because especially the discussions between investees and investors are very very interesting. You know, how do perspectives change, what are things that are important, and so on. So we feel this is like an ideal process to also kind of change the power dynamics that are usually there, people coming in and deciding when to invest. Yeah.
We have a lot more questions. One from Alexandra. If you'd like to read out or share your question directly, you're welcome to. And if not, I can read it for you. Do you have any experiences with institutional investors, pension funds, sovereign payment funds, insurance companies? Even when the ticket size do not fit right now, they could be a huge challenge.
Maybe Mecca, I can pick that one up as well as the other one with the hybrid models, I think, Alexandra, and hello. So no, we haven't approached institutional funders because the ticket size is too big. But one of the origin stories of this idea and this notion that can we harness a community that knows but doesn't have much resources in order to pilot and trailblaze so that bigger ticket funders could actually just throw maybe 10 euros after each euro that is invested by that community. And that's the logic. Can we bring founders together and maybe chip in, you know, the thing they have in abundance, but which is not liquid, their shares, into a pot. On that pot, we provide some small amount of cash, which we then decide where to invest. And ideally, so that would be the medium term, find development finance institutions, development banks, etc. You know, you take DEG, the German development finance institutions. Their smallest ticket in India directly into companies is somewhere around 5 to 10 million. Now, there is no capillary mechanism that breaks up this purpose-driven institutional capital into the 50,000 or let alone 5 to 10,000 tickets. So what we need is sugar in a sachet or an espresso. What is on sale is sugar not by the kilo or by the pallet, it's by the truckload or even shipload. So the purpose pool, if you like, is a way to harness social capital at the front line into a capillary mechanism that channels institutional capital. And the vision is to go back, you know, to Proparco and FMO and DEG and the Austrian Development Bank, etc., and say, look, we've got a community here. They're investing 10,000. 10 people decided to invest 10,000 into that business. Will you throw in the other 90,000 because that business needs 100,000? Yeah. If you trust that process, if you trust the judgment of those people with a stake in it, literally skin in the game, and knowing best. So that's the vision, but we need to scale this up to get there because, as I said, the pension funds, etc., they write 7-digit checks at best. So we need to grow a little bit to get there.
Thank you.
Angelina wants to know whether the purpose will provide any additional resources to your ventures to guarantee the 1.5x to investors. And Florian wants to know whether the 1.5x is attractive for investors.
Sorry, I was just
I think-
paraphrasing the question there. I was just I felt the question was too broad. It was one question that were addressed by Mike, and I said it's not easy to answer that without information.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, Mike,
thank
do you want to
for-
take the capacity building, and I can take the return question?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so for capacity building, I mean, we do the SINA programs prior that focus a lot on like personal and professional development, and we also have an accelerator. So that all happens basically before we do the investments into the enterprises. So we already know them also since quite a long time, which is, I think, a very advantage. Like most of them have been with us for 2 to 3 years, and they live residential on campus mostly. So we really know them fully. So I think that first helps. And then secondly, we do quarterly review meetings with each entrepreneur. So to see how they're performing, how can we support? And since now we are really growing our network, we also recently launched the IFB chapter in Kampala, actually. We're also trying to connect them obviously more to additional investors, and if they have specific challenges, also to people who can support them in that area, which is obviously now still possible because the portfolio is very small. I think maybe in 2 years we need to think about a more effective way, but right now it's still very possible to do it also one-on-one.
Yeah, and to Florian's question with the 1.5. So this is the whole point about the absolute return. What we promise is 1.5%. 1.5x. You invest 100, you pay 110. So there's a 10% one-off front-loaded management fee cost. Yeah, that's the hypothesis, and we're trying to establish that. So this is similar to pledge funds, again, a model that has been around in the private investment industry for quite some time. And if you think about it, the normal 2% management fee over a 10-year period, even with a step down, it comes down to pretty much the same. So you pay 2% on a 5-year period, but everything advanced upfront. And now then we pay back. We promise to pay back as the money flows back. And most likely, and we don't know yet, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5 years. But the whole point is an absolute return rather than a relative time-based return, which translates into an IRR. So we're not giving an IRR figure. It's an absolute return strategy, similar to real estate funds, hedge funds, or indeed private equity funds in the olden days when money was still scarce and not super abundant as it is now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. Sounds like the time horizon is approximately 5 years. Then that's certainly an attractive return. If it was 30 years, that would be a different story.
No, I mean, typically revenue-based finance is somewhere between 5 to 8 years maximum. So we're looking at 3 to 5 years, hopefully, but we don't know yet. We need to really prove that. And the risk profile is that it's a portfolio, it's spread, so that everything goes the wrong way is hopefully unlikely, especially when we start also not just spread the risk according to size, stage of businesses. The 5 to 50,000 is between piloting, prototyping, and scaling up. Some of them are profitable and scaling, even internationalizing, like Eugenics. Generous Designs is a lot more early stage, and there's a lot different kind of challenges to be overcome.
Thank you very much. I see we have so many more questions. I'm sorry, we won't be able to cover everything. We have time for 2 more. So Alexandra is asking who the typical investor is. And John is asking, you can ask your question yourself if you want to, as you have your video on. You're welcome to unmute yourself.
Is that me? Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, you pronounced my name correctly. Thank you. I was just wondering, we were looking at different models here, like redeemable equity, forgivable loans, different types of structured exits, like RBF. I think that you probably considered other ones too, and you settled on RBF. Is there a reason? Would you not recommend looking into others, or you said just let's stick with what's simplest?
you know, there's this old Jesuit joke about smoking while praying and praying while smoking. It comes down to the same, what one is permissible and not. So in a way, redeemable equity, you're buying shares and then selling them back is the same thing. It's just packaged in a different way. You know, is it equity that, you know, divests like a loan, or is it a loan that behaves patiently like equity? As I've said before, we haven't implemented it legally, but we'd rather not transfer shares, but harness the power of community and trust in this preemptive alignment notion. Yeah, but we still have to prove that. Yeah.
And maybe for the question of who's the typical investor. So, I mean, so far we've only done it on grant money. So we basically, got some money to prototype the model and experience it. But now we're looking into more like impact investors. So there are a few people, more like private individuals usually, who invest specifically in East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Burundi, and so on. So we had a few conversations with them. And because they kind of also like the model and also trust us because we also just know the entrepreneurs for so long. So that's kind of what we are looking into more now, like more private individuals as investors as a first step, since we also still have to figure out the way of the contracts and the repayments. And so we are, I think for now, looking for people who are willing to walk the journey with us and also are willing to contribute in terms of knowledge of it and so on.
And to have a certain radical streak, radical not as an extremist, but radix going to the root of the issue. And we've had that because we said it's invitation only for investors. And then one said, okay, can I still contribute? It was a grant, but I think, a certain curiosity and definitely risk tolerance is something that investors need to bring. And we're currently figuring out the structure for this. What we're looking into is actually building a platform, probably somewhere in Europe, maybe in Switzerland or Luxembourg, that can serve as almost like a SaaS platform, pay as you go, for other purpose pool implementers, where these the various purpose pools can sit and really see whether there's be significant structural economies of scale in that. And that's also a model that's been around for quite a while. Yeah. For those of you who are familiar with Luxembourg's TCAR structures and the share classes as fund. Yeah? So if anybody is in that field and has a structure lying around that rents out space for asset warehousing, please be in touch. And thank you. So back to you, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you very much to you amazing speakers and Amy again for that moving story. And very inspiring, and the courage to have gone that journey is very impressive. I want to thank also all our attendees for joining today. Again, I'll be sharing this recording with you all and the speakers' contact details. So please reach out to them if you have any follow-up questions, or you know someone in your network that should meet our speakers. So please make sure to connect them. And I'll check with our speakers also regarding the slides. I see there was a question about seeing the slides. Okay, thank you. We'll be sharing the slides too. Thank you everyone for coming. It was a very insightful session. Thank you, Mike and Amy, and Vikas again for sharing your expertise and insight. I think it's an amazing model, and I'd love to see more about SINA in the next couple of years and see how it's going. Maybe we'll do another session in a year or two. Thank you very much, everybody. I wish you a wonderful day ahead and hope to see you very soon at another Impact Breakfast session. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.